Hello and welcome to another episode of the NexusCast. As always, I am your host, Eli KatowJo Morris, and today I'm being joined by a new guest, Josh Overway. He's here today to talk about Nazeebo with us. Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Successfully lost almost all of my games today, so I'm really excited for this.
Yes, nothing sets you up better to tell people how to play characters other than losing every game.
It's been good.
really a strong way to start off. Um, but you gotta, I guess you gotta mesh the good with the bad there. Um, and it happens to all of us. I know I've been carried by you a few times, so that's okay. Uh, I'm really excited about talking about Nazeebo because I know for you, he was one of the first characters that you really got into. Um, I really pushed hard for you to start playing this game, and from what I was seeing, Nazeebo was kind of that guy that really actually made you feel comfortable playing a hero.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, because you'd had me start playing a couple times before I actually really got into it. But Nazeebo was free that week. I knew who he was from Diablo because I don't know any of the StarCraft ones, and only know about half the Warcraft ones if they're in Hearthstone. But Nazeebo, and then I was okay with him, especially for the first few games, and then yeah, he's by far the highest hero I've got and the one I've played the most games with.
Yeah, he's a fantastic. A lot of that we're going to talk about is going to be because of some of the utility he offers to a team, which I think throughout this series you're going to see is kind of a common thread about between some of the best heroes in the game. But I really wanted to talk about him today because for people who follow the pro scene, he's a hero that has always kind of been on the cusp of showing up. He might show up in a game or two, but it was really kind of like, wow, they picked Nazeebo. That's cool. That's not something you see. But more and more often, he's showing up regularly, and he's really kind of showing off what he can do. He's flexing his muscles, really um, making great use of the utility that he's going to offer to a team. So I think the best place to start, as always, is going to be to talk about their abilities. Let's start off with Nazeebo's trait. That's Voodoo Ritual on the D key. It is just a passive ability, and Nazeebo's basic attacks and abilities poison non-heroic enemies. This causes them to take 66 additional damage over 6 seconds, and that does scale 4% per level. And then, additionally, if a minion dies while being poisoned by Voodoo Ritual, Nazeebo permanently gains 4 health and 1 mana. And now this can just stack throughout the game. Um, it's really powerful. Josh, you were joking beforehand that it's the best trait in the game. Um, when you're playing Nazeebo, do you really feel the power growing as you go later and later into game?
Yeah, it's not uncommon at all to get 100, 150, 200 stacks of voodoo, and especially, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes. One of his talents that you can pick increases that bonus by 100%. So throughout the game, you're gaining 800 extra health and 200 extra mana, and it adds up surprisingly quickly.
Yeah, it is significant, and the later a game goes, the stronger Nazeebo's going to get. Some heroes um, really offer strong early game potential. You've got your kind of heroes that shine the best in the middle of a game, maybe a game that doesn't quite go all the way to late, but doesn't show up super early that with that much in the early game itself. But then there's heroes like Nazeebo, where once the end game shows up, you need to fear them. And I think that his trait, Voodoo Ritual, is really what kind of sets the tone for that fact. So it is super powerful, but it does come with a bit of a skill investment there because you do need to actively be thinking about it throughout the game. So
Yeah,
very
there's a
cool.
lot of you want to be leveling or you want to be laning, especially at the beginning, to get those voodoo
Absolutely,
stacks.
yeah. Almost more so, a lot like League of Legends hero. or a Dota hero where you really want to be focused on not necessarily last hitting, but making sure that when they die, they've been poisoned.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely something to be thinking about there. Where other characters, you're more just concerned with making sure that the waves get cleared. So definitely interesting there. Now we're going to move on to his actual basic abilities. The Q is Corpse Spiders, 50 mana, 9-second cooldown. You hurl a jar of spiders, so it is a skill shot that deals 50 damage, scaling 4% per level. If it hits at least one enemy, it creates 3 corpse spiders on the ground that will attack and follow, dealing 35 damage, scaling 4% per level. These spiders last for 4 seconds. So, fun harassing tool, but you do need to at least hit an enemy to create the corpse spiders. Zombie Wall W is a 70 mana 14-second cooldown ability, and after 1 second you create a 1 second delay. You create a ring of zombies that will surround the target area and deal 28 damage and lasts for 3 seconds. And that damage also scales 4% per level. And then the Plague of Toads, his E ability, a 30 mana ability that holds 2 charges, and the recharge time is 8 seconds. You create a wave of 3 toads that explodes on contact, dealing 140 damage over 6 seconds. They do scale 4% per level, and with the 2 charges, that effect will stack. So, um, got a kind of a variety of basic abilities here. You've got general targeted skill shots. You've got wave out skill shots to kind of do a little more area. And then you've got zoning and kind of trapping potential with the zombie wall. Uh, Josh, for this kind of interesting variety of abilities, what do you think that offers overall to Nazeebo's kit?
Well, I mean, again, you've already mentioned it a few times, but it's extremely flexible. Uh, very good dealing with uh, choke points, especially that zombie wall. Just is. I mean, you need to keep someone away. You need to trap somebody. It's extremely versatile. Corpse spiders do shockingly large amounts of damage over time and are really, really good at triggering that voodoo ritual because they'll just tear through those low hell minions. Um, and then, honestly, the toads are uh, not the best, but they're really helpful dealing large amount of damage to, say, when you're trying to get a camp or something, because you can just stand right in front of them, use the ability, and it'll deal a few hundred damage instantly, almost instantly.
Yeah, that definitely is one that's almost it does do a nice spread out. The toads do kind of spread out, so you can throw it from afar and kind of possibly hit a few people. But you can also just kind of shotgun somebody with it. So that's always fun. Zombie Wall, just the utility that offers is crazy. I mean, you can escape, you can trap somebody and secure a kill, you can zone out an area so they can't come in. Maybe if you're trying to take the boss and you're trying to block off one of the pathways to get into it. Um, just a lot of potential there. And then, it's important to remember they do deal damage. But corpse spiders, that's definitely his some of his most real damage potential there, and they are so annoying. As somebody who doesn't play Nazeebo much, but does play against him, I just cannot stand being chased down and murdered by these spiders. They are persistent, and it's the longest 4 seconds of my life. And I
And
think,
there's no way to get rid of them.
yeah, you just kind of just run. You just have to run. Um, so it's very powerful, and his overall kit is just kind of frustrating to deal with inherently. And that's before you've even talented him or looked at any of his heroics. So holy cow. He's a fun hero just looking at what he does. It's cool. Um, but now let's move on to everybody's favorite stuff, the heroic abilities. The first one up is Gargantuan. It's a 90 mana, 70-second cooldown ability. He summons a Gargantuan to guard an area for 20 seconds. It deals 100 damage when summoned, and that scales 4% per level. and then also attacks for 150 damage, scaling 4%. And it can even be ordered to stop. So when you summon the Gargantuan, the R key, or whatever you've maybe changed hotkeys to for your heroic ability, can be reactivated to stomp and damage nearby enemies. So just outright kind of a sweet little guarding thing. You can use it to, secure objectives, harass enemies if a team fight's kind of been located in a certain area. Definitely powerful and easy to use. The Ravenous Spirit is his second heroic. The mana costs 100, and the cooldown is 90 seconds. Now it is a channeled ability, and you channel a Ravenous Spirit that deals 207 damage per second, scaling 4%, and you cannot move while you're channeling. This ability lasts 8 seconds. So significant damage being dealt with the Ravenous Spirit, but it does inherently have risks. You're going to be locked down in a certain area. So, two very powerful heroics. Josh, I know you have some experience with both of them. Just in general, what do you like overall about what they do for him?
Well, the Gargantuan's nice. And definitely the one I go with more often than not. Uh, if you're playing any defense, it's great. They won't charge in with it when he's there, buys you some time. He does pretty solid damage.
Yes, he does.
And the cooldown, especially one of the level 20 talents, reduces the cooldown, but the cooldown's almost nothing.
Yeah, 70 seconds it goes by quick.
Well, and 20 seconds of it, he can be alive. And then if you take the level 20 talent, it halves that. So then it's 15 seconds before you can summon it again.
Yeah, that's
which
just like having it. I mean, and this is something that changed. I think originally Humongoid as a talent at level 20 made it so that it was indefinite and followed you.
Yeah, it was great.
The good old days.
I miss that.
Just like having a little henchman, a very
There was
powerful.
nothing like strolling across the map with a giant following you. Oh. But Ravenous Spirit, I'm not as good with it, and I'm not a big fan of channeling abilities in general. But
Yeah, they always.
it gets damage done.
It does. I always get frustrated when I see it go off if I'm close by, because generally, unless I have a character that's got a stun ability, I know I'm just gonna die. That's essentially 1,600 damage just dropped on you. And that's just at the baseline. So if he surprises you with it, if you're already low, that's almost a guaranteed kill. Um, but it's not as easy to use. He can't necessarily just blast it off in the middle of a team fight without putting himself at severe risk. So there's definitely some trade-off there, but it's always one of those where when I see it come out, I'm like, well, we need to get out of here now because it's gonna tear us up. So two very powerful, very cool abilities at the heroic level there that I both really like. Now, having looked at just his basic kit overall and his heroics, let's kind of talk about what Nazeebo does in a game. So he is listed as a specialist by role. But Josh, I think you'd agree that he can be flex in the way that he is a serious damage dealer in team fights.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
So specialist is a weird role inherently, because some of the characters play just like assassins, but don't always just quite fit the normal assassin role. Sylvanas in her description at one point was called an assassin, so it's confusing. And Nazeebo is one of those heroes. We've already run off his abilities and what they can do. He does not lack damage. He has serious team fight potential. So something I always love about him is that he just is a very flexible person because not only does he do great team fight damage, but he also has great potential and great desire based on his trait and what it does for him if he actively pursues it. Uh, Potential for solo laning. He pushes very well. And Josh, I think you, I'm sure, have stories to tell and things to say about what he's capable of doing. Um, when you are playing a game, how do you prioritize? Do you prefer to stay to team fights, or are you more interested in pushing that trait and pushing a lane?
Pretty much until level 10, I'm going to be focusing on laning as much as I can.
Okay.
Uh, there's just getting the heroic ability with Nazeebo is so helpful for a team fight when all of a sudden you can throw out 300 damage almost immediately to everybody in the area with the Gargantuan, or way more than that with the Rapid Spirit. But up until about 10, I'm just trying to get as many stacks of Voodoo as I can, usually.
Sure. I mean, inherently, it's making you just even stronger for the later game. Um, and kind of along with that, that lane pushing and trait based thing, um, you very early on adopted a um, strategy, I guess I'd say, that Nazeebo does really well, and that is to never ignore a merc camp. I've won many a game playing with you based on just the fact that all the mercenary camps are marked blue. And I know that's something you really did a ton of playing Nazeebo. Was that just a thing you enjoyed doing, or is that something you would suggest other people think about when playing Nazeebo?
It definitely started with not being completely confident that I could outplay a hero. So I
Sure,
figured,
early,
if
when
I'm
you
going to
first
do
started
that,
playing.
I'll just take the mercenary camps. Um, and then I realized, oh, this is actually getting done really quickly, and 4 or 5 seconds to take a camp is well worth it. And I've figured out you can start taking the giants at level 4 by yourself, and at that point they dominate a lane. Um, so I would really recommend it if you've ever got the time, especially if you know they're about to come jump on you in the lane because you've been pushing for too long and you need to get out anyway. Um, but I mean, Sylvanas has got to be the best at getting camps just because of her ability, but Nazeebo tears through them pretty well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. That he gives her a run for her money. I mean, she of course it's easy life. You're stunning him the whole time, but he's gonna burn through him. You know, she stuns him and just locks him down and kills him off. But the best crowd control is killing, because then they're not gonna fight back. So he does it well, and he's always when you're on my team playing Nazeebo, I can count on two things, and that is not having to worry about merc camps coming my way, and um, not really having to worry about pushing lanes so much because of how well you do it. Um, the next big thing I was going to talk about really is just his potential for setting up team kills or hero kills with the zombie wall.
Yeah, there's just a lot of potential there for, I mean, trapping somebody who's just finished using up all of their abilities in the team fight and are now trying to get away. Uh, you trap them for a second, even for them to get out, and they're going to die. Uh, and frequently in a hero fight, you can get two, and it's the same thing. And blocking off the Kerrigan you know is coming from one lane, or stopping the variant from getting to you in time. The zombie wall does a ton of work for a team fight.
Yeah, and they act in the game as terrain. So even characters like Tracer who can blink, um, she can't blink through the zombie wall. So if you've caught her, her mobility can really be shut down. Um, and similarly, other heroes that um, have kind of charge abilities or teleports um, are going to have to make sure that they do it right because even Li Ming, she can teleport out if she places it right because it's not a small necessarily area of zombies. Um, So it's very powerful for securing kills, but beyond that, as we mentioned earlier, um, you can use it to zone out areas, block off choke points, and I think that inherent utility to Nazeebo's kit, we've talked about lane pushing, we've talked about grabbing mercs, we've talked about dealing damage, securing kills. Um, his overall kit, it's not hard to see why he gets played so much in pro play now because
I've got
he.
one more thing to add. Sorry, Eli. Uh, Whenever you're fighting towers, zombies are great cannon fodder.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You can. That's something I don't think enough people do know. That's a great tip. You're talking about when you place it kind of around the tower so that it focuses them, right?
Yeah, and then you and whoever else you've got with you aren't being targeted by the tower, and the zombies are all going to die in 3 seconds anyway.
Right. It just blows out some ammo for you. That's a hot tip. I like to see more Nazeebos doing that in the world because that's an important part of lane pushing inherently and just getting structures torn down. Give them something else to focus. Get rid of a few ammo shots so that later on minions are going to last a little longer. Um, that's a nice little bit there. Josh, do you have any other kind of general advice or tips to think about while playing Nazeebo, or are you ready to move on to the meat and potatoes of this podcast?
Uh, I'm sure it'll come to me later. Let's move on for now, though.
All right. So the part I think most people are interested in hearing is, as a person who's played a lot of Nazeebo, um, how do you like to build them? These are for new listeners. This is where we talk about just fun ways to build them, how we think they're powerful, not necessarily always the meta builds or the best options to min max your numbers. Um, because this is a game, you should have fun, and winning's part of that, but enjoying yourself is too. So if you listen to our show, sometimes our builds variate, are variations from the norm, and that's because we've gotten to a point where we enjoy these heroes and really just like to test out things. So um, these are always going to be a little interesting. They may not be the top builds on hot slogs or on icy veins, but we will post it in our show description, a link to it, so you can check it out later and test it out yourself and see what you think. So, with everything we've talked about in mind, let's go ahead and start with his level 1 talents. He's got 3 at level 1 and starts off with Widowmakers. This is a quest talent. It inherently doesn't necessarily do anything. However, after you've attacked heroes 100 times with corpse spiders, their damage is increased by 30%. And just for the record here, their base damage is 50, scaling 4%. Pandemic is the second talent, another quest that inherently doesn't start off doing anything. The reward after hitting 40 heroes with plague toads, you spawn an additional 2 toads. And then Thing of the Deep. It is an ability that increases the range of all of Nazeebo's basic abilities by 20%. So Josh, looking at all those level 1 talents here, how do you like to start off the game?
Pretty much every game, I'm going to start with Widowmakers. Getting that extra 30% damage is huge. And generally speaking, if you catch a hero and the corpse spiders are lasting their entire time hitting him, you're going to get about 30 out of those 100 attacks done pretty quickly. Uh, Especially when you're doing fights at the beginning before the minions show up, you'll get about halfway there.
Yeah, you can really. I think people underestimate how quickly this stacks up. I did play Nazeebo kind of in preparation for this podcast, and I hit it really quickly. I was like maybe 7 minutes into the game, and my quest was already done, and I was like, holy cow! Because the damage. I mean, we talked about all the way up to now about how significant Corpse Spider's damage is in general, and a 30% bonus. I mean, of course, is a big part of our opinion on that, but it is a significant increase on an already powerful ability. So you like to start with Widowmakers. That's awesome. I like that too. I'd like to just give an honorable mention to Thing of the Deep. I imagine this is not the meta pick. I think a lot of people like Widow's Makers, but I love any ability that allows you to have a bigger range on everything. I just think that is too cool. I love this on
Well, and
Malfurion too.
I would definitely agree, especially against certain heroes. Um, Anybody that's going to stand back farther, Jaina, Chromie, Kael'thas, that's, or God forbid, Sergeant Hammer. Um, Thing of the deed, you might want to take instead. Being able to get your corpse fighters, get your zombie wall around them when they don't expect it is extremely helpful going 1v1 or even just taking somebody out of a team fight because of damage.
Yeah, nothing like the Nazeebo surprise party from a bush. You're suddenly surrounded
Yeah.
by spiders, zombies, and toads, and you never saw it coming. But
I will
corpse,
say, uh, uh, Pandemic, the Toads one, I tried it a couple times today because I generally ignore it. I don't think I ever completed that quest.
really?
Getting 40 heroes hit with the Toads is much harder than getting 100 spider attacks.
Yeah, well, it's those corpse spiders, man. All you have to do is hit one enemy, and it'll prioritize heroes, and it'll chase them down. And so that quest is like complete in itself. It's crazy. So we'll lock you in there, and we're gonna move on to talent level 4. We start off with another Corpse Spider's talent, Hexed Crawlers. Corpse Spiders restore 0.75% of Nazeebo's max health and mana when they attack an enemy hero. A trait increase here, Big Voodoo, increases the health and mana bonuses from Voodoo Ritual by 100%. Josh mentioned this earlier in the game. And then Blood Ritual, if an enemy dies while poisoned by Voodoo Rituals, restore 2% of Nazeebo's maximum health and mana. And this is any enemy, so it can be minions as well as heroes. So, Josh, what's your opinion on this talent tier here?
Big Voodoo all the way.
Big
Uh,
Voodoo. I like it.
there's definitely something to be said for hex crawlers. Getting that health and mana back, especially the mana, and especially early game, is critical. But with Big Voodoo, again, most of the time I'm planning for the long game with Nazeebo and getting that extra several hundred health, couple hundred mana. Just incredible gift from a level 4 talent.
It is, and it's, this is true just about his trait in general, but it is a gift that keeps on giving, man. You just get stronger and stronger, and it's wild. I'm with you all the way on Big Voodoo. I love that. That is fantastic. Level 7, Spirit of Arakir. If a corpse spider hits only one enemy, it creates 2 additional spiders. Dead Rush. Zombie Wall deals 75% more damage. When it expires, up to 5 remaining zombies will uproot and attack nearby enemies for 3 seconds. And then Toads of Hugeness. Increase the damage and explosion radius of plague toads by 20% after each hop, up to a maximum of 80%. Beyond just, I mean, you have to always take something called Toads of Hugeness. What do you prefer to take here?
Honestly, this is the hardest tier that I have for Nazeebo. Both the Spirits of Arachnir, creating 2 more spiders is incredible. But sometimes hitting only one enemy is difficult.
Sure,
And
bunched up in team fights.
then, yeah, then Dead Rush, 75% more damage. That little bit of extra damage when they go attack nearby enemies.
Yeah, and for people
Um,
who may not have understood, I do want to mention. So it says the 5 remaining zombies uproot. It means it's gonna. These zombies normally are stuck in the ground. They get out of the ground and they chase you down just like corpse spiders does. So it is kind of creepy.
I'm I'm honestly pretty close to 50-50 on this one, but I think I prefer Dead Rush just because of the well, if you plan on doing a lot of getting mercenary camps, go with corpse spiders. If you don't, go with Dead Rush.
Really? Okay.
I know it seems backward,
It does.
but
It feels like it should be the other way around, but I like it. Okay. Because I mean, we've already talked about zombie wall being great for securing kills. Um, if the wall's inherently dealing extra damage, that's only going to help you. I see
yeah,
where you're going with that. Um,
When you're planning on getting the mercenary camps, you only get one zombie wall before they're down.
sure.
You'll get two corpse spiders, or two uses out of the corpse spiders,
And
and
it's much easier to hit, I would think, one mercenary.
one. Yeah,
Sure, sure. You're making a lot of sense to me. Okay, I will agree that I inherently felt like it was going to be the opposite, but we're locking you in with Dead Rush here. And moving on to level 10, now you have kind of told us your opinion on that, but um, Gargantuan again, you summon a Gargantuan to guard an area for 20 seconds, deals 100 damage, scaling 4%, and when it's summoned, and then it attacks for 150 damage, scaling 4%. You can also stomp enemies. I don't know if I mentioned at the time. I did mention that it replaces the R button, but the stomp deals 240 damage to the nearby enemies, scaling 4%, but it additionally slows them by 30% for 2 seconds. Um, Fun fact there. And then Ravenous Spirit, 100 mana, 90-second cooldown. You channel a spirit that does 207 damage, scaling 4% per second. Cannot move while you're channeling, and it lasts for 8 seconds total. You've mentioned it a little bit, but which is it that you prefer taking normally?
gargantuan.
All right. Locking you in here, and that is mostly just because of ease of use, I think you were saying.
Yeah, I'm apparently just garbage with channeling in general. God help me when I play Gul'dan, but I the utility is just so much higher. You can place him, you can forget about him. He'll tear down some walls. It's he's awesome.
He is. He's gargantuan on the field and in our hearts. We love you. And level 13 here, Guardian Toads. Hitting an enemy hero with Plague of Toads gives 25 armor for 2 seconds and reduces damage taken by 25%. Inherently, that's just what the armor does. It's a little redundancy to remind people. But the 25 armor, if you hit an enemy hero with Plague of Toads. Superstition, gain 40 spell armor, which again reduces 40% damage from abilities. However, you'll lose 30 physical armor, which means taking 30% more damage from basic attacks. And then Ice Block. It's an activated ability that places you in stasis and gives you invulnerability for 3 seconds. Now, just as a quick aside here, stasis essentially means that you are not on the battlefield. So if you were to try to be real clever and use stasis while the actual act of capping a mercenary camp, it will not work. That does not compute, essentially. So if enemies were rushing towards an enemy mercenary camp you're capturing, and you try to stasis just to stay alive while you're filling up that bar, they will walk right on it and take it like you didn't exist. I see people misplay that all the time. Just
That's something
I
new
needed
every day.
needed to make sure that was clear because I see that happen sometimes. So Josh, with that out of the way, what do you like here?
So just gonna get it out of the way. I am terrible at using ice block. Uh, it is probably the best choice in most cases,
It is
but I
kind of,
hate it.
yeah, it is kind of a skilled ability in the way that you need to know when to use it because sometimes it just uh, delays your inevitable death, but sometimes it can get you out of a sticky situation. I mean, it does leave you stuck on a battlefield for 3 seconds where you aren't moving or doing anything. Um, you can avoid abilities like Ragnaros' Sulfurous Smash, things that are really televised. Maybe like ETC's um, Mosh Pit or otherwise, that kind of thing. But other times it just basically sets you up for being killed off in 3 seconds.
And that's how I've felt about it when I've tried taking it. So I'll usually go for superstition, getting that extra spell armor and losing a little bit of physical armor.
Yeah, and I mean, I think in general that one can be really powerful, especially if, I mean, it is best against, of course, a team that doesn't have many auto attackers. But I've played against Nazeebos with Superstition, where between Voodoo Ritual and Superstition, I wasn't sure I was dealing damage to them. I mean, they actually had to. He is a character you can play during the Mage Wars brawl. They had to disable this as a talent because he became so strong that he might as well have just been ignoring damage. Like, oh, I just got an entire Li Ming kit dropped on me and I'm just still walking by, like, whatever. Um, it is so powerful.
That's
I
still the only brawl that I've played all 3 games.
it's too much fun. And I had to say, I don't normally pay much Nazeebo. I've gotten to like level 6 or something, but uh, that was one where you take Nazeebo every time. When you could take Superstition, just because it was so broken. But now, of course, you got to do watch out when you're playing against somebody like a Tracer or like an Illidan, where a lot of their damage is going to be basic attacks. 30% more damage is significant. But
Valera too. Don't ever pick it if they've got Valera.
well, yeah, because
I hate Valera.
her abilities are annoying, but they're not necessarily her damage. Her her abilities are going to be what's frustrating because she's stunning you, but that's the superstition necessarily isn't saving you from that. Valera is just an annoying quick match opponent anyway. That I know many people are frustrated with Valera as a character right now. Um, but you're liking Superstition the most. You're saying
I think that's where I'd go.
I love that talent, and then it just feels so good to have it, and it feels so frustrating to play against it. Um, so we're locking you in there. Moving on to 16. Now 16 is kind of the talent tier where you really start feeling a good jump in power here. And this is just true in general, but with Nazeebo, you're going to see Spider Colony. Corpse Spider's cooldown recharges at 100% faster while above 850 health. That scales 4% per level. Ring of Poison, zombie wall lasts 1 second longer, and the center is filled with a poison that deals a total of 319 damage, scaling 4%, over 4 seconds. This damage starts small and increases over the duration. And then Soul Harvest, a activated ability with a 15-second cooldown. You activate to increase Nazeebo's health and spell power by 5% for each nearby enemy, up to a maximum of 25%. This effect lasts 15 seconds as well. So what's the good word here, Josh?
This is another one where there's definitely some variation in which one I'll be picking, but Ring of Poison is probably my most common pick here.
I
Uh,
do really like it.
I think if I pick back at 7, whatever the talent is, where you get the 2 additional corpse spiders, then I'll pick Spider Colony here. If I
Sure,
pick
sure, sure,
zombies, I'll
sure.
pick Ring of Poison.
Okay, that makes sense. So you're kind of building upon your earlier choices there. I think that makes a lot of sense. Have you played with Soul Harvest? That is intriguing to me. I don't think I even knew that was a talent.
I've tried it and I don't love it.
Sure, 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 sure. And I'm hard. It doesn't really say here. It just says each nearby enemy. I wonder what the range of nearby enemy is considered, because
It's not super large.
that inherently doesn't jive with my desire to pick Thing of the Deep at level 1, because I want to be staying away from them.
Yeah.
Interesting. I like it conceptually, but I love Ring of Poison. It's just building upon things I've already wanted to do with Nazeebo. That's trap people. That's keep people away from me and deal more damage to them. So that's awesome. All right, we're locking in Ring of Poison and moving on to the Storm talents at level 20. We're looking at Humongoid. The level 20 upgrade to Gargantuan reduces Gargantuan's cooldown by 40 seconds and its mana cost by 50%. The cooldown normally is 70 seconds and the mana is 90. Um, just for reference there, so the mana goes down to 45, the cooldown goes to 30. Annihilating Spirit is the upgrade to Ravenous Spirit. It increases the range of Ravenous Spirit by 50% and its movement speed by 30%. Really annoying. And I don't have any data here to tell you what its range and speed normally is. Um, Suffice to say that is just frustrating to have to deal with. Fury of the Storm, every 5 seconds, your basic attack will deal an additional 91 damage to the target and 228 damage to all nearby minions, mercenaries, and monsters. And then Vile Infection, it is a quest talent, and it is it's a quest for his trait. The reward is after reaching 175 stacks of Voodoo Ritual. It can also be applied to heroes, and its damage is increased by 200%. These stacks for the quest are counting the stacks you already have. That is correct, right?
Yes.
Correct
Also,
question mark.
it's 150, I think.
Is it? I might have the wrong tooltip here. My shortcut on Icy Vein says 175, but I called you in for a reason. You're the guy who know. Let me, we'll keep that in mind, folks. That'll be something to take a look at. 150 or 175. We'll keep talking here, and I'll try to pull up the correct answer. So, Josh, despite that minor inconsistency, what is your preference here?
Well, if I'm anywhere close to it, I'll take Vile Infection and increase my Voodoo Ritual. Uh, you can finally apply it to heroes. Damage gets increased by 200%. It's just ridiculous. Uh, and then, at that point, you're doing base of 66 plus 4% per level, 300 damage or so. I'm guessing here. But so if I'm anywhere near 150 or 175 stacks, whichever it is, then I'm picking that one every time. If I'm not super close or I don't think the game's going to last that long, or we're just getting into too many boss fights for me to lane, then I'll pick Humongoid, reducing his cooldown to 30 seconds, mana cost to 45. The thing stays alive for 20 seconds, up to 20 seconds. Resummoning it after 10 seconds after its death just feels so good. It's pretty much the time it takes to run to the next lane and summon it to destroy their walls there. I will say the few times I've taken the Ravenous Spirit heroic, I always pick the Annihilating Spirit here. That extra movement speed just really helps you chase down a couple people.
It is significant. That is for sure. Let me take a look at my thing here. I personally, I think Vile Infection is just really strong. But I think in my mind, it looks so cool that it's distracting me from the fact that he has a really strong level 20 talent here. I really like Fury of the Storm just on look, but like you said, late game you might even have time to be laning. Um, as you mentioned with like Vile Infection. So really, I like all of these. I think people should make sure they're always taking a full look um, at this hero's talent here, because some heroes you hit level 20 and it is just a given on what you're taking. Definitely flexibility here though. So you mentioned kind of between Humongoid basically and Vile Infection is what it sounds like.
Yeah, and if I'm anywhere close on the correct stacks for Voodoo Ritual, I'm picking Vile Infection. But Humongoid's great, so you don't feel bad if you're not there. But
I think
probably lock in for Vile Infection.
That's what we're gonna do here. We've got you set in, and I did find out, by the way, since we're locking in Vile Infection, This actually just did increase to 175 with the patch notes that came out on Thursday.
Oh,
So there's a very recent change.
well,
Just happened. It just changed on Thursday to 175. Um, just for your opinion, um, how big a difference does that make to you?
um, it does mean I'll have to spend a little bit more time uh, laning at the beginning just to get those kills up.
Yeah, I mean,
But
because you were already kind of concerned about its feasibility at 150.
yeah,
25 stacks does seem significant, but the increased damage is pretty sweet.
yeah, that actually does make it a lot tougher. I mean, there are definitely games where even with trying to do everything, you're going to only be 60, 70 stacks, just either getting chased off or killed or having to help team fight.
Well,
And
sure, and some maps are just inherently less lane oriented. There's
yeah,
sometimes you're just really focused on
uh,
the objective.
and then other ones where you'll end up with 200 plus without even noticing.
so
Um,
so would you like us to lock in viral infection, but just kind of as a asterisk on that one?
yeah, if you think you can get to 175 at all, take it. Um, because the reward is incredible there. Getting to apply your poison to heroes, it makes you much stronger in team fighting.
Yeah, that
Because
is.
I mean, everything applies that poison.
Yeah, and that is what's so important is that uh, that additional poison damage being dealt to heroes and increasing it by 200% it's just silly. That's powerful. Um, Again, we're gonna lock it in for viral infection there, but just so people know that change was made on April 20th. That is very recent. So if maybe you are somebody who plays Nazeebo, something to keep an eye on. And that's all the build. That's the talents we filled out in Nazeebo. Folks, this is again going to be listed as a link in our show description notes, so be sure to click on that, take a look at it, um, and be sure to play around with the builds yourselves. Um, I think that covers it there. Josh, you mentioned you may come up with more tips and thoughts as we go on through the show. Are there any parting words you would like to give our listeners?
You've got a lot more health than people think you will. You can stick in a fight a little bit longer than they expect. Uh, Usually long enough to wait for your talent or your abilities to come up one more time. You've got to get away with uh, zombie wall. Most people will just turn around the other way, especially if you've got the talent where it'll turn and chase them afterward. Uh, you're not as fragile as most of the range specialists seem to be, and that really throws people off sometimes.
Yeah, for someone who is hunched over, shaking like he has Kuru, and is a small of frame, he is undeniably stronger than you'd expect. So, all good tips and good takeaways overall for Nazeebo. Um, so, folks, that does it. You can check us out every week here on our YouTube channel, the Nexus team. Josh, I'd like to say thank you for joining us for the first time on the show. I definitely will have to have you back to discuss some more of your favorite heroes. Um, but I'd like to say thank you to you and to all of our listeners for joining us once again. And we'll see you guys next week in the Nexus.